Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you to the Resident and Family Support Council meeting that is sponsored by the Illinois Long-Term Care Ombudsman's Office. And also the Illinois Pioneer Coalition helps provide the forum for us, the Zoom account, for us to be able to do these meetings through. So thank you to the Illinois Pioneer Coalition for allowing us to use their Zoom account for these meetings. We really want to welcome everybody. We know that this is the Tuesday after Memorial Day, and we hope everyone had a great Memorial Day weekend. And that if you are taking vacation and you're listening to us a couple of days later because you're on vacation, we hope you had a great vacation as well. And I just want to remind everybody that these are on Zoom. So you can go to the IL Ombudsman Zoom account and be able to access our videos there. We've got over 65 videos on there now, which are fantastic. So please go ahead and peruse those site and take advantage of all the wonderful knowledge that has been able to be shared with us through the course of the years. I also do want to remind everybody that the link that you use to get into today's meeting is the same link that you use for every meeting. So make sure that you tell your family, your friends, your neighbors, everybody, and share this link wide and far so that people can take advantage of these great meetings with the great people that we have to come and talk to us, such as Dr. Fisher. We've got Dr. Fisher joining us today to talk to us about the Montessori method in dementia care, which is a really exciting concept. Dr. Fisher, you want to just share a little bit as you're putting your screen up? You want to share a little bit about who you are?
You bet. I would love to. Hello,
Great.
everyone. And it is a pleasure to be with you. And I'd like to also thank the Illinois Pioneer Coalition, because I know I interacted with them in the past as well. And to the ombudsmen that are on the call and to the wonderful residents, thank you all for what you do. And so pleasure here. My name is Anna Fisher. I am also a nurse. I work boots on the ground and have such a passion, especially working in the field of dementia care. 20 plus years I've been in long-term care and just loving every single minute of it. I'm a Montessorian researcher by nature, and the Montessori method, I want to make sure, can I go ahead and get started, or do you still want me to? Okay.
Nope, absolutely.
And so how the Montessori method came to be, especially my interest in it, is my passion for dementia care and just doing a lot of research, evidence-based practice on what is out there. So the Montessori method, actually named after Dr. Maria Montessori, Italian physician, worked very much with children and firmly believed if you create an environment, everyone will thrive. So here we are, the Montessori method in dementia care. Dr. Cameron Camp has been instrumental in this, in transferring it into our long-term care practice. So the pictures you see obviously here are real and with permission. And I'll go through this and explain more. I have lots of pictures, everyone, okay? So let's keep
Great.
going. You've seen these learning objectives already. I'm not going to go through each and every one of them, but just for you to really understand how it can not only improve, but enhance already what you're doing for dementia care. Importantly, that last item there is, what are we doing for that positive engagement to enhance mental, physical, and psychosocial well-being? And as we go through this, think of your own self. All these activities and everything I will be talking about, it really does apply to us all. So right here, very powerful quote from Dr. Montessori here, and I really want you all to take time to read this and embrace it, feel it. We can say the amount of challenges and problems manifested by the person is a reaction showing dissatisfaction with an environment that was not made for them. So I pause there a minute. Think of how complex it is, everyone, for us of cognitively being intact to live in current times. Is it with challenges? Absolutely it is. So think about
And
what that individual with a type of dementia is feeling, trying to succeed in living in a world that really wasn't made for them. So what can we do to help? That, oh, were you going to say something?
yeah, it
Yes.
was kind of just took me because this was originally designed for a a way for children to enhance their lives. And the statement about what Dr. Maria Montessori says is so applicable for people with dementia, or all of us actually.
All of us. All of us. It's a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose. Thank you
Yeah.
for the comments. So I want to start out with dementia. We know there's over 100 types and causes. That's important to know. Why? Because we need to refrain from lumping everyone in the same bucket of dementia. These are human beings. What type of dementia do they have? So then we can craft activities and the plan of care accordingly. So I just briefly wanted to touch upon that each person is unique. When you've seen one person with dementia, you've seen one person. So right here, where do we start? Know the person. So for us in long-term care or any type of care, even at home, I'm a caregiver as well. Know that person. What do they like? What do they not like? Get to know their habits, their routines. And these are just some helpful suggestions. Start out with their health status. What type of support do they need? Mental, psychosocial. Do they need physical support? What's their biographical information? What did they used to do? What was their occupation? And then what are their strengths and ability? We want to hone in on what they can still do, maximize the most of that individual. So here's the philosophy, and this is a high level overview. This in the next slide as well. We're going to focus on their abilities, not what they cannot do. So, in other words, when I interact with families and caregivers, one of the things they'll say is, well, mom used to be able to walk. Mom used to be able to do this. My dad used to be able to golf. And how wonderful that is. We respect that. But let's talk about now. Let's focus on what they can do right now and then maximize that. Meaningful activities to allow for that highest level of functioning. And I'll get to that later on as we go through this conversation here. Self esteem. Please know they have pride and dignity. We all do. And we must be very considerate of that as the dementia journey continues. And this last item here, certainly not the least, what's their social role? They want a sense of purpose. Give that individual a task. Are they the greeter? Are they helping set the table? What is their social role so we can help integrate them and they feel part of the community in a sense of belonging? This right here, I know is a very busy slide, but it's important for you just to see this. And I'm going to focus on a couple of them as we go through this. You're going to see a choice. This is all about person-centered choice, giving them a choice and option of what they want to do. Talk less, like on number 4, you see there, talk less and demonstrate more. In other words, the more you talk and put your words on top of that task, you've already confused them. So try to demonstrate more so they can copy or mirror what you're doing and allow them adequate time to process. Give something for that person to hold there. And again, I'm just highlighting key ones on number 8 there. We learn through our hands. And you're going to hear me talk about that later on here. Simple to complex. And the most important thing, number 12 there is no right or wrong. If they're engaging in activity, like right now, I've got these tongs, and I'm going to get to that in a little bit. If they're holding the tongs this way instead of this way, it doesn't matter. It's the fact that they're engaging. Celebrate that. So we're going to keep going here because we have a lot of content here. So it's all about structuring the environment in an individualized way. Sequential learning, what do we mean by that? They're learning through observation and recognition. So I tried to get some very simple tasks here that we actually do. These are tongs, everyone. Notice the vibrancy of the colors, red, yellow. And so if I want the individual to engage with me, I'm going to use it first so they can see me and then they can process this. and then allow that individual to do it. For me to just give that individual and say, here, can you use these tongs and pick it up? They're going to look at you like, what? And you've already confused them and you don't mean to. But if you learn to do and demonstrate, they will do it by recall and demonstration. You will be surprised by that. Also, any activities that we do with the Montessori, make it pleasing from the real life. They know what clothespins are, but make it vibrant. Try to organize your activities with a pleasing and that they can relate to. Any activities we do, multisensorial, auditory, visual, and tactile. You can see I have the auditory, the visual, and this right here I'm going to highlight, and you'll understand this. You'll hear me emphasize, everybody on this call, please take your first finger and your thumb and put it together. This is called your pincer grip. This is your finest of fine motor skill. Please, regardless of your level of cognitive ability, keep this going as long as you can, because this is what research shows is often underutilized with individuals with dementia. And if you lose your pincer grip, you lose the ability to do your ADLs, brush your teeth, comb your hair. How about go to the restroom, everybody, in a simple process, wipe. So think of this, the pincer grip, as we go through this conversation. So the environment of choices, this is a great picture. This is actually in one of our memory care areas here. We create an orderly environment, but notice the vibrancy of the colors. Okay, we want to make that stark, we want to make things pop. So this activity right here, we have a Montessori student there. He first was guiding them, having them watch him first. We're making mini hot dogs. So I'm in front of that table there. I'm standing in front. You can't see me. And so he is showing them how to roll and how to do this. They had no idea what to do, but they watched him first. In 20 minutes, look how many of those little hot dog rolls that they did. But we set them up to succeed. And what's important here, everyone, is we call them cognitive ramps. You've seen how we have ramps for wheelchairs, correct? To help people. What are you doing for a cognitive ramp to help them succeed? We're using the vibrancy of colors to offset the activity. We're giving them the resources to help them engage. And this is what they did. This is just one of 150 plus we've been testing here. So what he did is he demonstrated the activity. He did it as often as he needed to as he watched them. So you tailor this to each individual. The big takeaway, everyone, here is please, whatever activity you're doing, do it without interruption. So if they're sitting down doing an activity, what you really want to refrain from is having someone come over and say to one of the residents, Mrs. Smith, it's time to go to the restroom. No, Mrs. Smith is highly engaged in an activity. This is all about respect and dignity, allowing that individual to finish. So right here, this is what the research shows us. This is evidence-based to help adults engage by stimulating the mind that uses those fine motor skills we learn through our hands. So think about that. If you have, how many of us on this call have heard of behaviors, right? Behaviors is a form of communication. What are you doing to help that person communicate? Put something in their hands. We learn and we communicate through our hands. Right here, this is a simple one. Activity, it's not just shredding and tearing paper. I want you to really look at this, the importance of ripping paper. Look how simple this is. It's multisensorial, auditory, the sound, the visual. How about the hand-eye coordination? And then when we talk about simple, complex, we're going to go from a regular piece of paper, then we're going to go to construction paper, We've got some now who have graduated from all that. They're now ripping cardboard. We're strengthening their hand strength, and importantly, what everyone? The pincer grip, so they can continue to do their ADLs. Right here, any activity we do, there is a standard way we do this, and we do this because of the consistency. So I'm a nurse, I'm boots on the ground. Say that I'm going through this activity, following what I should do on the 6 to 2. And then here comes, and again, please know I'm just making this scenario up. Here comes a different shift, and they're completely doing it opposite of how I just did it. Keeping in mind, we're working with individuals who need our guidance. Consistency is critical to success. We want to make sure that every shift, every person is doing it in a similar standardized way as much as you can to avoid inadvertent confusion. With each activity, we have a template. And I don't know, Lee, can you see that on my screen? It looks half blocked, but on here, I'm hoping you can see it, is we have a purpose. Here's the activity. This happens to be tone bars, and I'm going to tell you a really wonderful story about the next slide here in a moment. These are tone bars, not just any tone bars. Here's the purpose of it. It's a sensory skill, auditory discrimination. That's what we're doing. It really emphasizes the auditory. Here's the materials you need. Here's the procedure. And then to change it up, you'll see at the bottom, that's what we call extensions. You want to go from simple to complex. Keep challenging the individuals, just like we continually need to be challenged, stimulate those brains, because if we're not stimulated, what happens, everyone? We become complacent. So keep everyone stimulated. So this right here was a standardized template. We have, I think, over 150 right now that we had been testing over the last 10 years. We have templates on every single activity that we do. This next slide right here, that's putting a bunch of, you see a xylophone, right? But this 103-year-old, after 6 months, she learned through individual tone bars, and we eventually graduated to a xylophone. She was able to read notes, color coded, look at the vibrancy of the colors and the keys. She played Mary Had a Little Lamb, and we had a recital for her. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. So just when you think someone is not capable, you need to rethink. And please know these activities do not happen overnight, and there's not instant gratification. You must continue with that consistency. Work with these individuals. So right here, what we did, I'm sharing with you briefly here, we crafted some, what you call activities here, according to the stages. So mild stage, higher level of thinking. This is what evidence is showing. On the top right-hand corner, and Lee, I'm hoping, can you see that binomial cube? Does
Yeah.
everyone on this call know what a binomial cube is? I didn't when we first started all of this. That's a form of doing arithmetic, everyone. We had an individual who had Alzheimer's disease, and he couldn't understand when people were using calculators. It seemed way too complex. Well, one of the Montessori students brought in a binomial cube. I wish you could have seen this in action. He knew exactly how to put the cubes in order to come up with a mathematics solution. Everyone thinks differently. And so it goes back to one of the original slides I had, get to know your individual. But a couple of things down here on this slide in particular, do you notice the Etch-a-Sketch on the bottom left hand? We came across that by happenstance. We happened to leave that out. I love the Etch-a-Sketch. I think that demonstrates really coordination. It's not a toy. It's a purposeful activity. A family member actually said, well, what is that toy doing here? Oh, no, it's not a toy. It's a multisensorial activity. And here's what we do. Well, we wound up giving it to a resident, and she actually drew a tree with it, nonverbal. So giving that person, but does everyone notice the fingers placement on the knobs? It's the pincer grip. So by the end of this conversation today, everyone, you're going to be looking at your first finger and your thumb in a different way. Trust me on this. So again, higher level of thinking is that art, drawing, science experience when or experiments, when you are maybe doing those carrots, instead of throwing away, turning it into an experiment and watching it grow, you would be surprised how many residents take pride. They called this, that's an actual plate, they called this their crops. And they took pride in growing that carrot top. Mild stage. Right here in the moderate stage, constructing a personal timeline. What you see in that right-hand corner, we originally started out with blank white piece of paper, poster board. They were involved in constructing their own life timeline. It was the most fascinating experience, allowing them to tell their story. These are just some ideas, some suggestions, getting to know your person. With our gentlemen, the keys and the locks, that would entertain them for hours. But again, you need to look at the size of the keys. Are they able to use that safely and without being any harm? Matching is huge. So again, really crafting that activity to what is relevant to the individual. Severe stage, look at the pincer grip, top right-hand corner, more than important than ever, keep that going. You still want that individual to do as much as they can for as long as they can. And not only for best practice, but for dignity and respect for these individuals. When we talk about folding cloths, sorting, and how many of you on this call have seen, let's just give them a bucket of towels or washcloths to fold, right? Well, you need to change that up. Not only are they folding towels, if they've mastered folding it in fours or what have you, take it a step further. Maybe you have them roll it, then take a piece of string or ribbon, tie it. That's that pincer grip. They're reliant upon you for the activity to go from simple to complex without causing any frustration. They're counting on you to continue to keep challenging on what they can do. Seriation activities are huge, going again, small to large, short to tall. We're using Legos. And I will tell you, Legos was one of the first things we heard family members and caregivers say, well, this is for children. Well, since when? It's an art building project. Allow them the freedom to build and explore, and you would be surprised what they're capable of doing if you allow them to do that. So these are just some highlights here, what I wanted to show you. Severe stage more because we really want to focus in. Look at the pincer grip. And this is where, forgive me as I look away a minute. I don't know if you can all see this. I don't know. Lee, can you see this? It's a dressing frame. It's orange. You probably cannot. If you look, everyone, on the top left-hand corner, these are called dressing frames. You want the individual to still try to dress themselves, correct? As much as they can. In fact, Dr. Montessori's, one of her sayings is, everything you do for me, you take away from me. So allow them, setting them up to succeed. So say you have someone that is being transported or chauffeured to a doctor's appointment. They're getting into a car and they're very frightened. You've taken out of them from their normal environment, right? You're going to a doctor's appointment. What are you doing to put in their hands to help them retain a sense of calmness? We've used dressing frames. We've used the little squeeze ball things, anything to keep the hands and a sense of calm. When they're in their rooms and frequently lost items, How many of you on here have ever interacted with people, even my own self? Have you ever misplaced things? Have you ever misplaced, say, your eyeglasses? Well, we start out with templates. You can see on the bottom, start out with a template. Help them guide the individuals. This right here is a black and white template that we used in a makeshift dining room to help the individuals still learn to set the table. And then they were able to do it without the template. Reciprocal learning, they've watched you do it, and now let them do it through recall and observation, setting cognitive ramps up for them to succeed. Right here are just some suggestions on what you can do that will maximize. You see, it's multisensorial. Think of the arts, the building. This is all about the freedom of expression, crafts. On that one, I just want to highlight crafts. You'll see I have in parentheses there the soldiers, children in hospitals, but youth emergency services. That's an actual agency for us here. We had the individuals help gather belongings, mitts, everything that we eventually donated to the shelter homes, but that gave the residents a sense of purpose and a sense of belonging to the community. They felt like they were making a difference. It was just the most beautiful thing. The tie blankets we made, so simple. And so simple things here, there are so many, but I try to condense some of the key takeaways here. More helping stations, and I'm going to start to show you some colorful pictures here in just a moment. Helping stations, they love history. Okay, talk about past presidents, states. We have pictures of globes. Crafting the activities to your residents. I can't emphasize enough about music. There is so much research out on the power of music, the connectivity, and the ability to soothe and calm. What recent research has really shown, live music has even a more calming effect than even a radio, or if you're playing something on TV. I don't know if any of you on here on this call can sing. I wish I could. I'm not a good singer, but live music, even if you can hum, has a sense of calming. Even listen to my voice when I say music. It has a sense of calm for the individual. Again, go back to sensorial. Smelling jars, sound boxes, knob cylinders, anything, flower arranging. It's the vibrancy of the colors and multisensorial. Right here, we're going to start to get into some of the activities now. Robotics. How many of you on this call have ever seen these pet robots? They're really popular. Well, I'm here to share a quick story. So I have this beautiful cat, robotic cat, and it looks real, so real that when you pet it, it just purrs and it's beautiful, soothing to the touch. And keep in mind, placing it on the lap gives a sense of security. So I brought this cat in, my robotic cat, set it down for a brief moment, and I came back out, and I'm not kidding everyone, it wasn't even a minute. And I said, "Hi, everyone, where'd the cat go?" And they said, "Well, Dr. Anna, she took it back to her room." And I'm thinking, that's wonderful. That's good. That's what you want her to do. I went back in the room and she had my cat submerged in the sink. And all I could do was love her. And I said, "Oh my, you have the cat in the sink." And she chastised me for not keeping a clean cat. So she was
Oh,
giving the cat a bath. But could you just feel that? She knew what to do. The cat was ruined because it was a robotic, but it didn't matter at that point. It gave her a sense of meaning and self-purpose. So think about whatever activity you're doing, tailor it to that individual. Here are some actual choices, some vibrant activities. We put them on carts as well. So individuals maybe who do not want to come out of their room, That's their right, correct? We want to encourage them to come out, but it is also their right, and we need to respect that. So we'll take a card into them. We need to make sure we're keeping from cross contamination. We may craft a cart just for that individual if they're going into their room. This was just to give you an idea, multisensorial activities that we have placed on cards. And of importance is making sure we keep these activities because of the routine in the same placement. They're going to learn from knowing the placement. They'll know exactly where to go on the second shelf to get the binomial cubes. If you mess that up, now you've just distorted their perception. So keeping a very orderly, attractive environment, that's good for any of us, right? Think about your own self. Do you function in a chaotic environment? Okay, well, sometimes my desk will say other. I may have a chaotic desk, but at any rate, that you see the xylophone there on the lower left hand, this resident was able to play the xylophone. We were able to take away the color coded. She was able to play without. Again, this does not happen overnight. It happens from consistent programming. Right here, more activity stations, colorful, the vibrancy, and you notice how we have the selections and we keep them very orderly. We don't cram it all together. We keep spacing apart so they can process. These are just some ideas. Now, when we first kept these activities out, I will tell you this took a while because the staff would say, well, what if they put something in their mouth? Well, what if they do this? What if? And I'm on the flip side saying, what if they don't? The biggest disservice is for you to have a preconceived notion that they're going to do something when you haven't even tried it,
Mhm.
thereby preventing them from engaging in that activity. Keep them safe. Again, you know your people better than anyone, so tailor the activity accordingly. Right here, these are actual that we did lifestyle stations that we actually crafted. We had an individual who's a tool maker. So what did we do? We gave him a tool bench, and you can't even believe what he was able to do safely. We had other ones on the left side, an artist. So we didn't just have coloring books, we had actual easels. Well, what actually happened then is all of the residents who were mobile, they were able to take markers. And when we left all like the poster boards out, you would be surprised what they drew. It was just a way for them to express as they were walking around, giving them a venue to express oneself. We all need that. Whoops, right here. Now I'm going to, and this is example of many of the activities that we were doing. Look at the vibrancy of the colors. And again, this doesn't happen overnight, happens from careful, methodical, a systematic approach, really gauging and crafting that activity and doing it consistently. So let's keep going because I really want to take a minute to go through the colors for the individuals. Blue is a very restful, calming. Evidence is shown it can actually lower blood pressure. If we know this, why aren't we doing it? And this is why encourage your staff. If we know blue, let's try to inject more blue colors into your activity. I'm not saying make everything blue, everyone, but interject spurses, sprinkles of blue. Okay. And then also notice the last item there, it increases the size of space. So if you have someone that may be feeling claustrophobic, maybe you want to sprinkle a blue blanket, something that may look or increase the apparent size of the room. Green, we all know what this one is, associated with life, with growth. But look at what evidence shows, everyone. It reduces the central nervous system activity. It helps people feel calm. So if you have a high anxiety and that so-called behavior, where that behavior is a form of communication, Get something green. Get a green blanket. Get something that might help diminish that high anxiety. But look at this like other cool colors, it makes the room appear larger. That's green. Let's keep going. Red, look what research shows us. It increases the brainwave activity, stimulates production of adrenaline, the blood flow to the muscles. This is your time to get somebody to do an activity. Get those red tongs out. Get red. It think of that, the production of adrenaline. It excites them. Get that blood flow through the muscles. It will also decrease the size of a room, making it look smaller. Okay. It also can increase the parent temperature of the room. So if you have someone that is consistently cold, I will bring out a red jacket, a red sweater. Notice I wore red. I'm always cold, but I'll get a red purse for the ladies to sit on their lap to help maybe feel like they're getting warmer. So it's knowing your colors. Let's keep going. Orange, we know that's closely associated with red, but it's earth-based as well. So it's a warm color, shares some of those similar properties. So it produces that association with nature and natural environments. Get to know your colors. And then yellow, highly visible. We're using this for signage. If you're wanting something to pop, use yellow. So say you want someone, they're not eating as well, right? And how important is dietary nutrition intake? Instead of sitting on maybe a placemat of a duller color, get a yellow placemat, get a red plate, put that food on that yellow background, get it to pop so it's attractive to that individual. Signage is extremely important for individuals with the different types of dementia. And you can see with the yellow, it makes the rooms appear larger. So that's a high level overview of colors. Believe me, I could go through so many of these. But another takeaway, please. I want you to never look at colors in the same way. When we conclude this conversation, I want you to think, what can you do to further enhance your activities? So here's an example of an individual with the bells. And I actually have the bells, the very ones she used. She learned to play these bells. There's not just any bells, everyone. She's reading the notes. The notes are on top of the bells. She couldn't pick them up to play them, but she was able to use her pincer grip and she could read the note on top of the bell. So craft the activity accordingly. Now, these bells are not for everyone. Some may not tolerate the noise level, but you tailor the activity accordingly. She was able to play brilliantly songs by putting these in order. Nonverbal, I just want you to know that, but communicated through the power of music. Right here, as we start to wind down, please take advantage the power of technology. Look at the vibrancy of the colors, everyone. Doesn't this just pop for you? It's like beautiful. What's important about this interactive technology that we installed was the range of motion and the motor skills. And keep in mind, this happened during the pandemic, and I'm a nurse to avoid cross contamination. So, to give you an idea of this, of the power of this right here. So, we had individuals who were wheelchair bound. We programmed it through the camera. They're not touching the screen, but by one point, one finger, one hand, they could make the fish move. So this was critical for the ones who had mobility issues and maybe were bedbound. And we in bedbound, what does that mean? It means that they're in bed. We still need to try to do activities for the individual. We need to be creative on what we can do. This was highly successful. And so right here, as we conclude, an enriched environment builds better brains. So when an individual has a type of dementia, think of one area that's impacted. Alzheimer's disease, we know, is the temporal lobe. It doesn't mean the entire brain is impacted. So, what are you doing to nurture what remains and allowing that individual to thrive? They're counting us to help them. And so, right here, I have some resources. And Lee, I'm happy to share those with you. But I
Right.
went really rather quick because I wanted to leave time for you all. I thank you for your participation and any questions that you have for me on this. We are actually, gosh, we've done decade plus research in our own facilities on the Montessori method, and it was not without its challenges in the beginning. I will say that.
Where are you located, Dr. Fisher?
In Nebraska.
In Nebraska. Okay, very
Yes.
cool.
Yes.
Oh, and you've been using this method for a long time with your
We
community.
we have. And it's something that, we need to make sure it needs to be keep consistency is what I'm trying to say
Yeah, and
on
so
this.
much of what you said, I just still kept feeling like this is not just people that have dementia have absolutely they need that specialized focused engagement, and I feel like so much of this is can also work for just people who live in long-term care who need that additional stimulation. I feel like so many times our life daily engagement can look very rote and unengaging, and many times the activity calendars are built out by an activity director who's sitting in an office who is not 80 years old, who is not of that generation. And they're the ones who are building these calendars that who wants to do this activity, and it just feels like if we look at each person, I like, that we need to look at each person, that one person with dementia is one person with dementia, making sure that we're looking at that way with everybody, that we're really taking a look at that stuff. So so much of this is applicable across the board, I really feel. What are your thoughts on
Yes,
that?
I completely agree with you. And I know bingo is a common activity.
Mhm.
Would you all agree with me? Perhaps it is.
Yeah.
And, and
Yeah.
bingo's a wonderful activity. But what's so wonderful about it? We need to make sure everyone understands it. Break it down. It's multisensorial. It's more than just placement of the little coin or how the marker on the card. It's hand-eye coordination. It's placement. It's auditory from the cheers when they win. They're processing the numbers being called. It's every activity, learn to think of it differently. So this right here, I want to make sure I'm showing. I don't know, can everybody see this right
Yeah.
here? Whoops, I think I
Mhm.
pressed. Can everybody see this?
Mhm. Yes.
It's a straw, right? Well, what does this mean, a straw? Please know a straw is a very powerful activity. Engage your resident. Have them try to peel a straw. You will
Mhm.
see 20 different ways on how to peel a straw, but importantly, look at what it does for the hand-eye coordination, the pincer grip, and the hand strength. So anytime you're out and about, and after we conclude this call, think about everything in your environment and what you can do to maximize the most for that
Mhm.
individual. You want to make it purposeful and meaningful. Does
That's
that help, Lee? This is not just a straw. This
mm,
is building hand strength, pincer grip. And I see some of them go like this. They'll pound it on their hand. They'll break it like this. I see some try to put it in their mouth. But you'll see
mhm.
20 different ways on how to do a straw.
Yeah, and that what you also said, that everything you do for me, you take away from me. I think that
Yes,
that's so important for us to hear as well, because I think we, as caregivers, many of us dive in to just automatically do, and so we'll take the straw and we'll take the paper off the straw for efficiency, let's get that, be able to have that drink. So we take the paper off the straw for the individual as opposed to letting them just take their time, do it themselves, and let them experience that. I think that that's a
yes.
great idea.
And how about everyone when they're trying to get ready, dressed in the morning? Are we just like
Mhm.
all rushed, right? So they'll get one button and then we'll say, "Oh, here, let me help you." No, let them finish. Allow them out of dignity and respect. Sure, is it going to take time? Probably, but you would never want it to interfere with. I want to make sure I'm clear on this. You would never want it to interfere with if they had a doctor's appointment. You would want to help them get dressed to go for their transport to go for the doctor's appointment.
Mhm. But make that part of their life engagement. Get that
Yes.
activities of daily living. Don't look at it as being tasks that we need to accomplish through the course of the day so they can go to an activity program. Instead, make that be part of what their activity, their
Well,
daily life events are.
yes, and Lee, think about it, everyone. If it's your home and the facilities or wherever they are, it's their home. And out
Yep.
of respect, we need to know that. So say that I came into any one of your homes. Are you going to allow me to dress you and help you? You're going to look at me and say, "Get out of my face, and I'll do this when I want." But yet, that's not a behavior. That's respect that this
Uh-huh.
is your home. Oh, yes, Mary. I see your hand is up. Lee, did we want to stop recording for questions or?
Oh, we'll keep the question. We'll keep
Okay.
recording for the questions too. Yes.
That's fine
Mary,
with me.
unmute
Um,
yourself.
quick question. What if the person that has dementia also has physical disabilities? That mean a lot of what you've described may not be possible.
For that, are you talking the hand?
Yes.
Can you tell me what they can do? Or I don't
Um,
want to violate anything.
no, no,
That's
no.
just
It's actually no one specific I was thinking of. It's just there are several people in the group that I deal with that have various disabilities from total quadriplegic to um being able to uh they can use their arms a little bit, but
okay.
not a lot. Um, and it's some people that just struggle with things like stretching out and reaching. So it's very varied, very varied.
So thank you for that question. That's a great question. Have you worked with therapy? I know I work and we'll chat with our therapists. If someone has limited, minimal, or next to no range of motion, if you will, and maybe garner some insight from the therapy on what we could make work. In other words, are there adaptations that we can do to help that individual with an activity? Again, Mary, I'm just throwing that out there, not knowing the details or the background of the individual, but maybe tapping into the expertise of individuals who that is their area to help maybe the immobile or the mobility impaired succeed.
And I think what you said about
It's,
looking at each person as that individual, looking at what
yeah,
can people do in order to be able to develop that plan,
yeah,
and also looking at their interest. If the individual doesn't have interest in bingo or they don't have interest in music, that's really not their strength area, then that doesn't make sense to pursue those engagements with them. Just as if people don't have the ability to be able to, the dexterity in their hands, be able to pick up things, there's adaptations like those bells. Those bells, actually, you hit the top of them to make them. You don't have to pick them up to shake them, correct?
correct. They're
So that,
just like this, and you have the opportunity to press or you can shake it depending on the individual. There's all types of instruments that are out there
so
to
being
help
able
the
to
individual.
adapt for the individual and
It
looking like, I
is.
know in my past, I'm a recreation therapist. So that's that's my area that I have always um, looked with that lens throughout my career. And I've always looked to see how can I have people still pursue their life's engagement by doing some adaptation for them, not taking it away from them, them still to be able to do. And I think and it just depends on that individual and what that is and how you can adapt. Because I feel like you can adapt to anything. And working with a therapist is a one of the best advice that you could, like you said, Dr. Fisher, that what a great words of advice for people to talk to their therapist and find out. And sometimes it could just be, they could build up a utensil, they could build up a paintbrush, to make it thicker to hold so that the individual can then grip it. I've seen a gentleman paint with his mouth. He used his mouth to be able to paint, which he did a phenomenal job in doing that. Very abstract, but he still got to pursue that passion that he wanted to pursue. So
And what
we
you're
have gotten some requests before we go on any further in conversation about the PowerPoint. Are you willing to share your PowerPoint with us so that I
and
can
I'll have
post
a
it?
handout. I will have a handout for you, Lee, that I will send. Absolutely.
I will be posting that on the Department on Aging's website for the Resident Family Support Council page. So you'll be able to go to that. And we've got working in the background who's done a lot of research as you've been talking, Dr. Fisher. She's been adding a lot into the chat on some of the things to help enhance people's knowledge of some of the things that you were sharing. So that's Karen. Karen
Oh,
is
that's wonderful.
yeah, and she does a great job of doing that. So she could drop the Illinois Department of Department on Aging into the website, into the chat, and make sure, or you could always Google it and you'll be able to find it as well.
I thank you. And I actually see Catherine. Oh, it's okay if I read your comment, Catherine, or your question.
Yes, go ahead, go for it.
Are you a therapist? For gross
No, I'm sorry, I'm a retired Mrs. Gym teacher lady, but I know the value of the gross motor.
Yes. And when we talk about the gross motor skills, do you know, I'll give you an example here, what we did. We had an individual who worked, who was a former grocer, owned his own little five and dime store, if you will. He was able, we went to Walmart and we actually had bought a cheap little cart. He actually was able to assemble that, what allowed him to utilize his larger gross motor skills. He decorated the cart and he was the one that delivered all the newspapers to the residents. And so when you just said that about the gross motor skill, it just brought memories back of him pushing that cart and delivering. And again, the biggest underlying message of that was his sense of belonging. He was in a community making a difference, is what they want. Does that help, Catherine? I mean, tailor it accordingly. Um, I know we've had some pedals like for the feet that you put on the ground and they pedal with their feet like that. Well, I know we put vibrant colors on the foot pedals so they could better relate to it. They weren't able to just see the regular pedals. We had to put colors, yellow and red. And then they were happy to step all over those colors and get the pedals going. So again, it's learning what your resident wants. It gets back to that very beginning where I said, know your person. I mean, know them. How well known are they? Not popular, how well known. Can you go to your staff and ask anyone, tell me about this individual? Beside that they have Alzheimer's disease, tell me about Mr. Smith. And that's what's important. Yes,
Yeah.
Lee.
And I like that connection. We need to have that connection to past life experiences with people and not forget about their past. I mean, if somebody was a secretary, being able to getting file folders and put papers into files, being able, if a handyman, I love that you created a workbench for that individual. What a phenomenal idea. I've used toolboxes, given gentlemen toolboxes and had them clean the tools, had them wrench sets that had the preformed places for where the wrenches need to go, using that like a puzzle to put all those wrenches back into where they need to go. Take them all out of the box, put them back into the box properly. And that's been a really participatory opportunity for men, because many times men, we struggle with finding those things that have that meaning and purpose, for a man to engage in.
Exactly. And again, keep in mind what you're doing is engagement. They're failure-free activities. You want them to engage at any level safely. being able just to show participation. And I know sometimes maybe the caregivers or staff might say, well, we tried this activity, but they're not engaging in it. Well, you need to try more than once or twice, allow them to learn. And I give the example I used myself. When I first received my cell phone, I didn't know how to use it after the first, after the first 10 to 12 times. I had to learn it. Be patient with me, just like our residents. They're processing, and allow them adequate time on that.
Just because people are older doesn't mean they don't want to learn. You know, learning is a part of lifelong living, to learn new things as well. So that's a really great point that you bring up. I like the carts. You know, so many times you see carts in long-term care communities and they've got everything on them. And they're like, wow, they've got everything that you could do here, but they're overwhelming. I like
Yes,
the way your carts and also the open airiness to them. You know, you have racks. They were a rack instead of just solid carts where you could it gave it a little bit, didn't feel overwhelming to me looking at your carts. I look at some carts that I see sometimes in a long-term care community and they feel very overwhelming. I wouldn't even know where to start to see if there was something that I wanted to do on that cart. So I think that what a great idea that is, those
and
carts.
point well taken there. And you could take that thought process, Lee, and think of the dining table. So individuals, when you see them not engaging, maybe, is their plate overwhelmed with food? That's a lot to process. So maybe you remove some. I'm all about the food groups, that's important. But maybe you remove so the plate is not so chaotic, and thereby inadvertently frightening that individual, because they'll look at a full plate thinking, what is all this? What am I supposed to do? Think of it through the lens of someone with a type of dementia. Think,
Yeah.
feel, and listen
Yeah,
to
my
the resident.
grandmother, a case in point, my grandmother did not, she hated a full plate. She liked to go to a buffet because she could tell them, I want 4 string beans on that plate. No, don't give me that piece of meatloaf. I want half a piece. Because she said when she had a full plate, it turned her off. She didn't want to eat. It made her not even want to eat that food. So she wanted a plate where she can control what was on that plate.
Right.
And have that, you know, just what she wanted to eat, because she was taught as a kid to, you got to, you know, if it's on your plate, you better finish it. So she didn't want to waste food. So she did not want too much food on her plate, or she just didn't even want to eat it, which was really interesting. I always found that very interesting with her. Really
Yes.
great information. I also noticed that many of your slides had kids in on them. You had a lot of children, or not, I'd say young adults. Is that a part of your philosophy? Is that part of the Montessori philosophy?
It
Speak to that.
was. Yes, they're Montessori high school students. We had the only Montessori high school secondary school in our state. And so they came in and they would do this. And what eventually happened is our residents were able to help them with some of their homework.
Great.
And
You've
that's
got
that reciprocal learning.
Absolutely. I absolutely love that. That's really, and then, you know, the byproduct might be that you actually are getting some of the younger people interested in a career to work in long-term care, to work with the aging population. So you may have really, I would be really curious about that piece to it, if any of them start gravitating towards this path of working with, you know, in the aging network. That would really be really, really cool.
And we
So,
did have
you know, we need
several of the Montessori high school students, when they graduated, went on to go into physical therapy or occupational therapy. And then we had 2 that went in to become medical doctors. And,
wow.
really take a step back. They're our future. So, what are we doing to give our youth of today? Because you know what? They're probably going to be caring for us,
Yeah.
right, everyone?
And we have such a workforce shortage right now that
Oh,
we're
me
not thinking
too.
about the future. We need to be thinking about propagating this next generation to want to work in the long-term care world, because we have a workforce shortage, you know. So what a great way to do it. Bring them in and see it's not so scary to work with older people. It can be extremely rewarding, and you
It
can learn
is.
so much back. That's what I love about this path, is learning so much back. Well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop the recording right now. And I just want to thank you so much for everything that you've shared with us today. It was wonderful, wonderful, wonderful information. So thank you so much.